I wonder what it was like to make that journey, 9 months pregnant, presumably riding an animal of some sort. I wonder, as they anticipated this birth, if they had taken everything along with them that they really needed. And at that time of place, what did they need to take care of a child? I wonder, once they got there and found that there weren't many places to stay, how they coped with the anxiety of that.
I wonder about the shepherds. How many were there? Were they friends? Were they family? What was it like to work on that hillside at night? What was it like when the angel appeared? And I wonder about the sheep. How many sheep? What did they do when the angel appeared? And I really wonder what happened to the sheep when the shepherds ran off to Bethlehem to follow the news of the angel.
I wonder about angels and how they get there. They appear. Have they traveled from point A to point B, presumably very quickly, or is there angel presence just everywhere in the universe, and when they need some at a particular place, it just kind of goes and it's visible to people like us?
I wonder about this. A baby born who is Christ the Lord. I wonder what that story means.
During this Advent season, we've been using this word wonder as our theme. And of course, it has a couple of meanings, this wondering that we do, asking questions. And then there's the other part, which is the awe and the amazement. And both of those things are true. But I sort of think, as I look back over the last 4 weeks or so, that we've actually been asking a lot of those questions. If you think of wondering as the space between asking the question and the answer, and if you think that that space might be actually expanded, that we might create space for the questions to roll around in our imaginations, I also think that's where we find some of the awe and amazement just in considering those questions.
So I wonder about the incarnation. What does this story mean? God made flesh. God incarnate. Of course, that story does and can mean lots of different things. But I'm wondering what it means, what it may mean for us here tonight in this place. One way of looking at it is to think about this story as a specific event that happened about 2,000 years ago to a poor Jewish family in the region of Galilee and Palestine. A story about the beginnings of Jesus of Nazareth, a peasant carpenter who grew up to be a prophet and Messiah. A story about the birth, life, death, resurrection of someone who changed the world. And of course, that is what the story of the incarnation is about. That's what Christmas is about. It's to remember and celebrate and honor the story of Jesus. But I don't think that's the only thing it's about. In fact, I think if we think of the incarnation as a singular event, a one-time incursion of God into humanity that happened once long ago, then we miss something important, something wonderful about this story. I think this story doesn't just tell us something about Jesus, although it certainly does do that. It doesn't just tell us what Jesus was like or is like. It tells us what God is like and what we are like. The story of the incarnation is a story of God so loving the world that she couldn't bear to be separate from the creation she had made. That God so loved the world that God desired to dwell with us. Emmanuel, God with us, not only as spirit, but as flesh, one of us. The story of the incarnation says that our very humanness, our very flesh, is the dwelling place of God. I wonder what it would mean if we took that seriously. I wonder what it would mean if when I looked in the mirror, I looked at the reflection as beloved of God, and I looked at it as a piece of the divine incarnation. And what if I looked at every person I encounter like that as well? I wonder what would happen if we took that seriously. How might the world change? If before we did anything else when we interacted with someone, we looked for the spark of divine incarnation in them. We tuned our hearts and our attention and our eyes to find that peace of God that dwells in them. What if it became a practice? We could begin with our families around the Christmas dinner table, take it to the cashier at the grocery store, the person we meet on the street, the person on the news who makes our blood boil, that politician that we love to rant about. The people on the other side of the world whose lives seem so far removed from us. What if we took seriously the story of the incarnation, that all flesh is sacred flesh? How would that change how we talked about each other? How would that change the choices that we made about how we spent our time, our money, our energy? I wonder what would happen. St. Augustine said that wherever love is, there is God. Wherever love is being expressed, felt, acted on, received, God is being born into the world in that moment. The incarnation is not only something that happened in history a long time ago. The incarnation is happening every moment, wherever love is. And love is everywhere, all the time. It can be hard to see sometimes, I think, especially now in the world. But love is there. Sometimes she's disguised. I think sometimes love shows up as compassion and empathy in the face of judgment and exclusion, or as strength and courage in the face of injustice, or tenacious resistance in the face of relentless oppression. And sometimes love turns up in the simple tenderness of being present alongside loneliness. What if we took seriously this idea that the very nature of God is love, and that whenever we choose an act of love, no matter how small, that the same power of the living God that was birthed in Jesus is birthed in us in that moment? The incarnation is not just an event that happened in the past. It can happen. It is happening every moment, wherever there is love. May this be the year that we find the divine in us and in others to act on that love and bring the world-changing power of God that we see in Jesus into this world today, where it's so desperately needed.
A baby was born. A conquering hero didn't appear on the scene. A baby was born. It wasn't a cowboy in a white hat with his 6 shooters on a golden palomino. A baby was born. wasn't a Jedi Knight with a lightsaber. A baby was born. It wasn't that annoying politician with the super PAC. A baby was born. That this part of the story is so important to the way that God appeared in the world. We mustn't forget that. We mustn't forget that. And this part of the narrative isn't like, some rich and famous and powerful people who can say, yes, I came from humble roots. It seems to me that the character of Jesus' birth, that quality of his life carried through the rest of his life as well. His life and ministry was marked by humility and vulnerability and power and clarity and compassion and love. But he didn't build a kingdom or an organization or even a club around himself. He created a movement by showing people that they could be healed, that they were worthy of the love of God, people who had probably been told over and over again that they didn't deserve God's love, that they didn't deserve to have power. God plopped Jesus down right in the middle of a family. Not sure that was a good idea or not. You know how families can be in all their complexity and wonder and also power and possibility. A bunch of you are sitting with your families right now. This is the time to be with family. And I know for many of you, this is the most important part of this season, is to be in that body. And that's where Jesus was, with a mother and a father. And we think brothers, and there are probably some sisters. And he probably went through all of the things that a child growing up goes through. Gabriel said the child was holy. I'm not sure that child was perfect. And that's how Jesus knew how to speak to people, because he had family and he knew how to treat other people like family. The incarnation, here it is. You're not just looking at it, you are in it.
Friends, tonight we bring you tidings of great joy. A baby is born. Love is born into this world. Look for it in the most unlikely places, the vulnerable, the messy, the ordinariness of life. But take heart. Do not be afraid. Love is on the way. Joy is here. Thanks be to God.
Amen.